Do 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 do. Hi, I'm Rick Harsch, and this is my master class in fiction. You can skip this ad in 3 days. Today's class is on trusting the writer. And the reason I started out with a little jingle, I don't know if you could recognize it, but that's the Old Spice jingle. I'll never forget it. It's in my head forever. That's an insidious thing. Yes, because it's joined by about 300 other ones. And I can never get them out of my head. They go back to the 60s. It's that insidious. But the reason I mention jingles is that jingles are kind of a musical cliche. Cliches are another thing that we try not to say because we know it's awful and deadening to the soul, and especially to our victims if we speak them to someone else. Good God. But there's a writing cliche, and it doesn't come with a jingle, and so I don't ever get it quite right, but it goes something like this. If you mention a pistol on page 3, it better come up at the end of your short story, let's say. And this is a question about trusting the writer. And my hypothesis is a trustworthy writer, in this sense, is a boring writer. If I see a pistol on page 3, I shut the book, unless I've had an indication ahead of time that the writer is going to surprise me. Like the best example of a writer who surprises you constantly is Gilbert Sorrentino. I was reading Mulligan Stew until recently, when he had me reading some other thing, and then I thought, well, okay, if you want me to read that, then I'm going to read this, And I thought, no big deal. How does Gilbert Sorrentino know? So I picked it up again last night, and as soon as I opened the book, bam! I got. Suddenly he was talking about people fighting, and one of them smacked me. That's a writer I cannot trust, and I will read that guy. I will read every book he's ever written eventually. You never trust a writer. Never make that mistake, but always be happy that you can't trust a writer. My favorite example of this is not a self-serving example, because there are divided opinions on this. Because I went to the Writers' Workshop of Iowa, I was eligible for the Iowa Graduates Only $12,000 sweepstakes, the Michener Copernicus Award. And I usually, if you have a book coming out, you'll get it. They have like 10 a year they can give out, as many as 7 to 10 a year I think they give out. And if you've got a book published, they want to give it to you because you'll put it in the acknowledgments. To get the money, you have to sign something that says you will include them in the acknowledgments for that book. Well, I published the Driftless Zone, and they didn't give it to me. And I thought, I'm probably the first ever. They never liked me there. I knew that. I made sure of it. I didn't like the way they taught and the way they ran things, and I had a big mouth, so I wasn't very surprised. And the next year, Billy Verite was published, and then they gave it to me. And you know why? It's because they thought, well, we don't like Harsch, and we don't want to give it to him, but what if he gets famous? And the Michener Copernicus people say, hey, why didn't you give this guy a Michener Award? And then the people at the university would think, oh, shit, we fucked up. I hope we don't lose the Michener Copernicus, because they could give it to the University of Arkansas to run. It'd be just as sensible, maybe more so back then. And so anyway, I signed that I would acknowledge them in my book. And so I'm going to read to you my acknowledgement, because you can trust a writer to a certain degree. I said I would write them an acknowledgement, and I did. I received what's called a Michener Copernicus Award for this novel. 12 grand in small, unmarked bills, delivered in 12 monthly payments to prevent me from investing unwisely. And I'm thankful to the Michener Foundation and the University of Iowa especially now as I write, because I have another 6 months of this literary swag coming. However, as is generally the case with awards, this came long after the book was finished, and so did nothing to lift me from the circumstance of wretched dependence I was in while writing it. It seems more important, therefore, to thank, with the help of an exhaustive list, those who provided me aid when I needed it. And then there are a bunch of names, those who provided me finances, 500 from one, food and drink, a bunch of people, clothing, and advice. So, then I get a call about a year later from the head of the Iowa Writers Workshop, and he wants the money back because of my acknowledgement. And I said, I'm sorry, Frank, I spent it. I blew it. I blew the money, And he said, well, will you write them a letter apologizing? I said, I'll write them a letter. And I wrote them a letter, and basically I said, you've been dealing with writers for a long time, and you still trust us? The fuck's the matter with you? Don't trust writers. No, never. And anyway, so that's also, that my thesis is that the writer you're reading, if you can trust him or her, you're going to be bored. Read writers that you can't trust. I'm not talking about lending a writer $10. Some will give it to you back, some won't. But if you're reading a writer and the writer says, look, a pistol, it's going to be used in 9 pages, like it's supposed to be. Fuck it. Just skip to page 9 and make sure the writer's telling you the truth at least that time. If they're not, go back and read the rest. So, that's my master's class for today. The pact between the writer and the reader. Yeah.